For this project, I first laid out the grid so that way I would know where each of my passes of the table saw needed to go. And here, this is where a really nice saw stop table saw or a different saw would have made this project a little more efficient in my time and actually a little more accurate on my cuts. So anyway, I had to do 2 passes here since I'm using a job site table saw. That way it's a little bit wider than my saw blade, which is the same width that I needed for the backer board that's going to go in here for the pieces. So here, just multiple passes, 2 passes for each one. Just slowly adjust the fence slightly each time and just go back. Lots of repetition. So once I got finished with all these passes here, I'll give you a shot and you can kind of see what it looks like, and it came out pretty well, relatively speaking. There's some grooves in there, that's why I didn't want to zoom in too much. You guys might have seen them. But after that, same kind of process. Get the backer board and cut it. Which here you can see a mistake. I actually was holding the backer board the wrong direction. Instead of doing it long ways, I did it the wrong way, so I had to go back to the drawing board and cut them. But anyway, here are 4 pieces that I did cut to the correct length, and give you an idea of what you're going for here. You want to have a good 1/4 inch overhang like this, and then that way when you take these side and end pieces that I'm cutting on the table saw here, doing the same thing with 2 passes. So once all these grooves are cut, those backer board pieces will slide in more easily. So you can see as I slide them in, the first couple went alright. Well, not first couple, the first one, and then some did not. So what you have to do, just simply mark it up, take it back to the table saw and give it yet another pass. And my whole goal here was make sure that I don't do too much from the start. I'd rather go back and do an extra cut than end up having too much gap and then a wobble. And here my table saw fence had a burr in it that was causing my boards to kind of twist, so that's why you saw me sanding it. Once I got them where they were able to slide in the grooves, came over, marked the spot for each of the perpendicular pieces, and then put a piece of painter's tape on here. And the goal here is that marks up essentially halfway, and then I can take my table saw blade, raise it up to the height of the painter's tape, and then that way it'll be able to receive the other pieces that are going to go in the other direction. So here, just stack them up. There are only 4 of these, so lots of cuts, but 2 cuts for each of the little lines, and that's for, again, the 2 pieces, the piece that'll be going perpendicular. So it's probably not the safest way to cut it because I didn't have those mounted in or held in together, but it is what it is. So here, this is where I'm cutting the pieces going the opposite direction. Just each of those cut, and I did make sure once I finished here that I actually used my little bench dog push stops. I probably should have done that the whole time. So don't watch my videos for safety. That's certainly not the best use of power tools there. Anyway, take the pieces that are going to go the opposite direction, mark them so that way they'll be the remaining height, and we're all set. So here I did use clamps, make sure I didn't have these guys move at all, because with so many of the pieces there's a lot of room for error. And the saw left a lot of jagged edges, so I got those filed down, and then it made an even easier process for it to go. So after the file, sanded them, made them a little bit smoother, nicer, so that way when it's stained it would take it better too. So here, this part I did kind of mess up here. So I put tung oil on the back piece, which is not where I messed up. Where I messed up is putting the tung oil in each of the grooves, because you don't want to do that since I'm going to be gluing in here. So I did try my best to kind of wipe out some of it, which it's not going to come up. So lesson learned. Anyway, went through, squeezed glue in each of the grooves, and then the grid backer board pieces that I had would lay in there and hopefully get some kind of bond. But I'm not sure it did a whole lot. It's working as it's hanging on the wall, but probably could have done that piece better. So here, just decided to put the end pieces on and then clamp them up really well So got them on the bottom and then the top, because if you do just clamps on the top, found out the hard way, it'll certainly make it bow, and nobody wants to have that happen. So then took it outside, just got the orbital sander, went all over each side, and didn't spend much time at all on the backer board, just made sure that on the edges it didn't bow out too much. You can see it's not quite flush, but it's not protruding in any certain negative way. But I don't have a whole lot of faith in just using little screws going through the plywood. So what I did here is made sure that I put pocket hole screws, so that way the meat of this, that has all the weight to it, will actually be anchored into each other pretty well. So this thing's a lot heavier than I thought it was going to be, and ended up using like a wire picture hanger to hang it on the wall versus just 2 screws, because I also did that since I'm not very good at keeping things that I hang on the wall very straight. So ended up just going with the dark stain on the outside, which is very similar to the backer board, and then the inside I left that lighter color so it had some contrast to it. So here you go. Hopefully you guys like it, and if so, feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. But thanks again for watching.